Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a first look at the NFL slate on DraftKings for Week 5. We're going to build out a cash game lineup in this video, sort of build out a first look lineup. Just kind of talk through the slate, guys that stand out based on their salary, based on their matchup. We'll hit at each position. And we'll just kind of talk through the process of building out an early look lineup for this 12-game slate on Sunday. Just before we do get started, guys, I want to let you know that I have started a new series on my channel. I'm going to be doing recap videos every Monday. They will most likely go up before these do. I usually make 2 videos on Monday, well 3 videos actually. A video for the Monday Night Football Showdown slate. I'm doing recap videos now where I will go over the previous slate, talk through my picks, how my picks did in my Week 4 video, or in my video that I upload on Thursday. I'll talk through that. I'll go through my lineups, talk through my lineups and show you guys how they did, where I was right, where I was wrong. I would appreciate it if you would check that video out. It is already up on my channel. If you're planning to play the Monday Night Football Showdown slate for tonight's game between the Steelers and the Bengals, I do have a video up on that as well. Make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new. And let's go ahead and take an early look at this Week 5 slate. At quarterback, at this position, looking at the top here, there's already a couple guys that stand out. Early look, Deshaun Watson at home against the Falcons. Definitely going to be someone I probably want to get some exposure to. For cash games, I don't know if I'm going to really need to go there because I usually don't pay up for quarterback in cash games because quarterback's just such a wide range position. Rarely do you get like a 35, 40, 45 point game from a quarterback. Rarely like fading a quarterback that's high owned. Rarely is that going to cost you because you can get similar production to the expensive quarterbacks for guys that are cheaper, and guys project similarly that are cheaper. But I feel like in tournaments, in my 3 tournament lineups, Deshaun Watson's probably going to be in at least one of those 3. I do like this matchup a lot for him at home against the Falcons. Tom Brady's in a really good spot against the Redskins as well. Kyler Murray's in a good spot against the Bengals, but again, I just don't feel like I need to pay up at quarterback because there are some values below 6K that we'll talk about. Carson Wentz is in a pretty good spot at home against the Jets. Even Dak Prescott at home against the Packers could be pretty interesting. Those are definitely some guys you could look to. Below 6K, we've got some good value down here. So one guy that stands out to me for value is Andy Dalton. I think he's in a very favorable matchup at home against the Cardinals. He's someone that I'm probably going to be going to as an early look cash quarterback. He's only 5,700. It's a great matchup. So far this year, through 3 games, Dalton has been pretty good for fantasy with 25, 22, and 18 DraftKings points. The Bengals do play on Monday night, and I am recording this video on Monday afternoon, so that game has not started yet. It's going to be very interesting to see how Dalton plays on the road against the Steelers. If he has a good game Monday night, I have a good feeling he's going to be pretty popular this week given the matchup against the Cardinals. Everybody's scoring on the Cardinals right now. They have one of the worst defenses in the league. This is a really good spot for Andy Dalton, so I think we can plug him in at 5,700 as our starter. But there are some other guys we could maybe go to if we need to save some salary. Like you got Teddy Bridgewater in a great matchup at home against the Buccaneers. Bridgewater hasn't been that great this year in the 2 games that he started for Drew Brees. Against Seattle when he started, he had 16.28 DK points. And then in that Sunday night game against Dallas, I was pretty high on Bridgewater for the showdown slate, and he just wasn't that great. 193 yards, no touchdowns, threw an interception, just 7 DraftKings points. Really wasn't much scoring in that game in general, so I guess that's kind of why Bridgewater had such a bad game. He was pretty efficient, completing 76% of his passes, but still at 5,200, he's only 500 less than Dalton. I think Dalton's probably a lot safer than Bridgewater, but if we do need to save some salary, if we want to try and upgrade at a position later on in the video, then we could definitely go down to Bridgewater at 5,200. You got Kyle Allen at home against the Jaguars for 5,100, who could be interesting, but that's probably it for value quarterbacks. I don't see anybody below 5K that I really want to go to. So for now, I think Dalton's going to be the guy we roll with. If we want to make some changes later on in the video, we can do that. Moving on to running back, always a position you want to try and pay up for in cash games. You've got these high volume workhorse backs in Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott. I think all 4 of these guys are going to be in consideration for cash this week. I feel like all 4 are going to get some ownership. Right now, if I had to guess, I would imagine that the 2 most popular are probably going to be McCaffrey and Zeke. just because Zeke's matchup at home against the Packers. Packers have been really bad against the run this year. McCaffrey's just going to be popular because he's just that good. He's always he's always a great play because just the volume he gets. He's going to get probably 20 carries. He's going to get insane volume in the passing game. Last week against Houston, he wasn't even that efficient. Only averaged 3 yards a carry, but he's getting so much volume that that makes up for it. 27 carries, 93 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Also got 10 targets, 10 catches for 86 yards, 33 DraftKings points from Christian McCaffrey. Even in a matchup against the Jaguars, a pretty good Jaguars defense, I still think Christian McCaffrey is the top projected running back on the slate and someone that I probably want to try and pay up for in cash games if possible. So let's go ahead and plug him in for now. If we want to downgrade or if we need to save some salary, we can do that later on in the video. But for now, I'm going to go with McCaffrey as our starter. Just because I think he gives you probably the highest floor, the highest ceiling out of any running back on the slate. But then you got Alvin Kamara against the Bucs at home. Pretty favorable spot, although the Bucs defense versus the run this year has actually been pretty good, which is something I didn't expect to happen. Bucs have been pretty stout against the run, but still it's a good spot for Kamara at home. He's going to get a ton of work in the passing game, which always makes him a great play on DraftKings. You got Dalvin Cook against the Giants. I would say that's a pretty favorable matchup as well. Then you got Zeke at home against the Packers. A Packers team that has really struggled against the run. So all three of these guys are in consideration for cash. If you can pay up for two of these guys in your cash game lineup, I think that's definitely a way that you could go. For now, we're probably going to have to go a little bit cheaper because we already paid up for McCaffrey. I don't know if we're going to be able to get both guys in. So let's look a little bit cheaper, see what we can find. You got David Johnson in a great matchup against the Bengals. I think David Johnson makes a lot of sense at 7,500. He's just seeing a ton of volume as well, getting a lot of work in the passing game. If the Bengals or if the Cardinals are winning this game and they're running the ball a lot, Johnson's going to see a ton of carries. If they're trailing, if they're throwing the ball a ton, Johnson's going to be on the field getting work in the passing game. So I think he's a great play at 7,500. He's probably going to be someone we consider for cash this week. If you're stacking that game, which I think makes a lot of sense, he's obviously going to be a part of that stack as well. So I think he's an option we could maybe look to at 7,500. Leonard Fournette seeing a ton of volume. I think he makes for a great cash play. 29 carries last week against Denver, 225 yards. He's not getting a ton of work in the passing game. At least he didn't in that game. He will get work in the passing game, though. He's seeing a ton of snaps. He's pretty much the clear number one back for the Jaguars. Like, rarely does Fournette come off the field. He's playing like 90% of the snaps, I believe. So, he's a workhorse RB, and he's only 6,400. Road matchup with the Panthers, I would say, is a bit tough. Rarely do I try and attack the Panthers defense because I think they do have a pretty good defense. But Fournette at 6,400 could be an option we could look to for cash games this week. I think Joe Mixon at home against the Cardinals could be in play for cash this week. Aaron Jones, I like a lot. I think he's going to be someone in my player pool come Sunday, especially if Jamal Williams is out. Jamal Williams did get hurt in that Thursday night game against the Eagles. And Aaron Jones was he was the number one back. He was on the field pretty much every play. I don't even think the Packers had a backup running back active for that game. I think they had to use their fullback as their backup. In that game, Jones got 13 carries for 21 yards. It was a tough matchup against a really good Eagles front that's really good against the run. Jones was not efficient at all, just averaging 1.6 yards per carry. But he did get a ton of work in the passing game. 7 targets, 6 catches, 37 yards. He did find the end zone, had 17.8 DK points, even though he was very inefficient. This is not the best matchup against Dallas. They do have a pretty tough front, a pretty good run defense. But I think Aaron Jones is just going to see so much volume. He's going to see a ton of work in the passing game if Jamal Williams is out. I think Williams most likely will not play come Sunday. So I really like Aaron Jones at 5,900. He just feels a little bit underpriced if Williams is out. He really only needs about 18 DraftKings points to pay off that price tag to be a good value play. And I think he can definitely get there through the run. He can get the work in the passing game to be valuable on DraftKings. So we'll plug him in for now as our RB2 at 5,900. There's definitely some flex play considerations we'll go to, or we can look to, like with either Fournette, if we can get Fournette in there as our flex, David Johnson. If we can pay up for one of the expensive guys as our flex, we'll look to do that. But let's go ahead and move on to receiver now. Try and fill out a couple receiver spots. So at the top, you got guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, who are definitely good plays. These guys are going to see a ton of volume, but In cash games, rarely do I pay up for receiver. I always prefer the expensive running backs over the expensive receivers. And I feel like that's going to be the case this week. It's going to be really hard to get like one of McCaffrey or even two of McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, whoever. I'm probably going to try and get two of those four guys in my lineup for cash, which means I'm not going to be able to pay up for guys like Hopkins, Julio, Keenan Allen. If I had to choose one of these guys, I'd probably go with DeAndre Hopkins just because I like his matchup a lot at home against the Falcons. He should be able to get open against this Falcons secondary. I think this is definitely an eruption spot for DeAndre Hopkins. He's probably going to be in one of my tournament lineups, I would imagine. He's definitely in play for cash games if you can go there, but again, I prefer to get to the expensive running backs if possible. Keenan Allen, we know, is going to see a ton of volume. 7,300, he's interesting for cash games this week if you can get there, if you can find enough cheap value receivers that you can look to. Keenan Allen's definitely someone for cash that I think makes some sense. But for now, let's try and find some value receiver before we fill out the rest of our lineup, because I know we're going to need to find some value find some value somewhere. So let's look for some cheap receivers that could potentially see some volume. So just looking below 7K, getting down from the studs, I think there's one clear play here that really stands out. Michael Thomas is only 6,600 in a matchup at home against the Buccaneers. This is a great spot for Michael Thomas. I don't know why he's this cheap. Looking at the slate before I started recording, I knew that Michael Thomas was going to be in our first look lineup, so I'm going to go ahead and plug him in. I have a good feeling he's going to be someone I probably try and get to in cash games if possible. Even with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback these last two games, Thomas has still been pretty productive, getting 16 and 18 DraftKings points. In the Sunday night game against Dallas, he got 9 catches for 95 yards on 9 targets, so he caught every ball that went his way. In the game against Seattle, he only got 7 targets, 5 catches, 54 yards, but did get into the end zone. Thomas is just so consistent, so productive. Even with Bridgewater under quarterback, he's still been putting up pretty good numbers. And now he gets to face a very bad Tampa Bay defense that struggles against the pass, has a really bad secondary. This is a great spot for Michael Thomas. And I think one of the reasons I'm not going to be able to pay up for guys like Hopkins, Julio, Adams in cash games this week is probably because I'm going to try and fit in Michael Thomas if possible. If I can get like one of the expensive running backs, get Michael Thomas, get Keenan Allen, then I'll probably try and do that. But I have a feeling I'm going to be trying to get 2 of the expensive running backs with Michael Thomas. That's probably going to be the way that I go. But I really like Michael Thomas as a first look cash play. He definitely stands out. Just talking about volume, you expect him to get his price tag and the matchup as well against the Buccaneers. But now looking for some cheaper receivers that we could maybe plug in. One guy that stood out to me was Allen Robinson. So he's in a great matchup against the Raiders. Raiders, very bad defense, very bad secondary. Really good spot for Allen Robinson. Only concern is that it looks like Mitchell Trubisky's not going to play in this game, so Chase Daniel is going to be the quarterback for the Bears, which is obviously a big downgrade, but Chase Daniel did target Allen Robinson a lot in the game against Minnesota. Daniel pretty much played the whole game. I think Mitchell Trubisky got hurt right at the beginning of the game. So Daniel pretty much played that whole game. He targeted Robinson 7 times. Robinson got 7 catches for 77 yards. That was a very tough matchup against Minnesota, against Xavier Rhodes. Now he gets to face this really bad Raiders defense, this really bad Raiders secondary. I think Allen Robinson at 5,600, just given the price tag, the volume he expects to get, I do like him a lot as a potential value receiver that we could plug in for cash games. He definitely stands out at 5,600. So let's plug him in. That leaves us 4 spots remaining: wide receiver, tight end, flex, and defense. Let's just go ahead and look at tight end, see what we can find here. Defense as well. If there's any cheap defenses we can maybe target, we'll plug in a cheap defense real quick so that way we'll know how we're looking for the rest of our positions. So just looking at cheap home defenses, there's definitely a couple that stand out. The Panthers at home against Jacksonville. The Chargers at home against Denver really look appealing. Even the Steelers at home for only 2,100 against the Ravens could be appealing. It seems like Steelers-Ravens game pretty much are always low scoring or always defensive battles. Let's plug in the Steelers for now at 2,100. If we can upgrade to get up to the Chargers or something, we can do that. But I think the Steelers could actually be a pretty good cheap defense you look to this week. So tight end, we'll plug in the tight end real quick that we see, and then we'll fill out our last 2 spots, receiver and flex. So at tight end, no Travis Kelce on this slate. The Chiefs play Sunday night, so Kelce's off the board. Zach Ertz, our most expensive tight end against the Jets. Zach Ertz probably not someone I'm going to be looking to at cash games this week. I don't feel like I'm going to really be going up to the expensive tight ends in cash games because Evan Ingram's kind of in a tough spot. Darren Waller's in a tough spot against the Bears. Zach Ertz, I would say, is in a favorable matchup, but I don't want to pay $6K for him when I'm trying to get in some of those $6K and $7K receivers and running backs. So we're probably going to need to find some value at tight end. A couple guys that we can maybe look to: Jimmy Graham against Dallas. Once Aaron Rodgers in their last game said that he needs to get Jimmy Graham the ball more, and he did do that. Graham got 9 targets against the Eagles, 6 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown, 18 DraftKings points. It was Graham's best game of the year. He did play a lot of snaps late in the game. He was on the field a lot. So that's definitely intriguing. You could probably look to Graham for 4,300. Greg Olson's only 4K against the Jaguars. He could definitely be an option. O.J. Howard against the Saints feels like a decent option. Delaney Walker, tough matchup against the Bills, but Delaney Walker is just a really good tight end, and he's only 3,900. So he's another guy that we can maybe look to. But the one guy I did want to talk about was Tyler Eifert. So far this year against tight ends, Arizona's been getting torched. Every week it's happened so far. It happened in week 4 with Will Dissly. Will Dissly had a good game against Arizona. TJ Hawkinson's had a good game against them. Greg Olson went off against the Cardinals. Mark Andrews went off against the Cardinals. The Cardinals have just been torched by tight ends this year. Now you got Tyler Eifert facing them for only 3,300. I'm going to be very interested to see how Eifert plays on Monday night in that road game against the Steelers. I'm probably going to watch as much of that game as I can. I do want to see how Tyler Eifert plays in that game, if he's on the field a lot, if he's playing a lot of snaps. 3,300, he could be a value tight end we look to this week. The flow chart so far this year has been play tight ends against the Cardinals, and it's worked pretty much every week so far this year. Will it work in week 5 with Tyler Eifert? I don't know, but he's only 3,300. He's probably going to free us up some salary to get in another expensive running back or receiver. So let's plug in Tyler Eifert for now. We did play Andy Dalton, so we do have that correlation, Dalton to Eifert stack. Usually don't think you ever need to stack in cash games. It's not really necessary, but if anytime it fits in your lineup, it's obviously a positive correlation. But now that we got about 6K remaining per player, there's multiple ways we could go here. We could probably try and pay up for an expensive running back like Kamara, Cook, or Elliott. Let's plug in one of those guys and then see what that leaves us at receiver, see if there's any receivers that are playable. We'll just plug in, I would say my favorite's probably Elliott for cash as of now, but honestly don't even know. But that leaves us 3,800. I don't think there's really any playable receivers at 3,800 that we could probably go to. So I don't think we're going to be able to get to Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, you have Auden Tate for 3,500, who could be interesting. He saw 10 targets week 3 against Buffalo. I did recommend him as a play on the showdown slate for Monday night. And like I said, I'm going to be watching as much of that game as I can. So we'll be interested to see how much Auden Tate plays, if he gets targets. 3,500, could be someone you look to, but honestly feels kind of risky for cash. But if you did plug in Auden Tate, that'd leave you enough to play any of the running backs you wanted to. So you could get to Kamara, you could get to Dalvin Cook, or you could play Zeke. So that's a route that you could go. If you wanted to get in one of the expensive receivers like Hopkins, Julio, Keenan Allen, Evans, if I had to play one for cash, I'd probably play Keenan Allen just because I think he's going to see the most volume, and he's also one of the cheaper receivers out of the stud receivers. You plug in Keenan Allen, then that leaves you 4,800 remaining per player. Just looking for plays that are 4,800 or less that are potentially interesting. Tariq Cohen's not really seeing enough volume to be playable. Yeah, can't really go to Tariq Cohen. Chris Thompson, don't really want to do that. Royce Freeman, don't want to go there. You can maybe go to Curtis Samuel, 4,500. So that's a route you could go if you wanted to pay up for Keenan Allen. Or I think you could get David Johnson in there. Yeah, you could play David Johnson at flex, and then you could play Curtis Samuel. So that's another route you could go. You could do Allen at 7,300 and then play Samuel at 4,500. Or you could take out Keenan Allen and play David Johnson, who I do really like, for 7,500, and then that leave you enough to play Curtis Samuel at 4,500. Curtis Samuel, I think, is definitely a value receiver that's in play this week. He's seeing targets. He's getting too many targets for his price tag. Like, he should not be 4,500 if he's seeing 7 targets a game. He should be up there like with DJ Moore's price, like 5K, 5,500. Curtis Samuel still remains underpriced in my opinion. This Jacksonville secondary, especially if they're going to be missing Jalen Ramsey, not nearly as good as everyone thinks it is. So Curtis Samuel definitely in play. Could be someone you look to for cash this week. So that's probably one of the builds you could do. You could go Samuel Johnson. You could go Samuel Keenan Allen. That's just kind of how I'm looking for this early look cash lineup. But I think that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, make sure you drop a like down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Like I said at the beginning of the video, be sure to check out my Week 4 recap where I recap the slate, talk about some of my picks and how they did, where I was right, where I was wrong. I would appreciate it if you guys would check that video out. It is already up on my channel. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next one. Good luck this week. Peace.